No time for a cozy talking to the camera intro this time. We have a lot of ground to cover, so with the glue up done, I headed over to my brother, and with 4 blanks, 2 cups of coffee, and the plans laid out on the table, we began talking about the order operations and possible pitfalls, and how to avoid these. Since CNCing is new to me, I let my brother take the reins and instead assume the role of a student with way too many opinions. And to minimize viewer confusion, we attired in different colored flannels. Step 1. Define a center. With step 1 done, we needed to figure out how to mount it on the mill. When making the blanks, the maximum depth of the mill was not something I had taken into account, so it's just pure dumb luck that there was enough space. One of the other blanks was used to help the clamp stay leveled when we screwed it down. Once the lock-based portion was completed, it was time for some excessive pointing. Zeroing out the DRO. And we are ready to start drilling. We used a center drill to start all the holes we needed to drill. This is to help guide the drill bit go straight and not veer off when making contact with the material. It might not have been necessary, but remember we are many hours into this project. The time gained from skipping it would not be worth the risk. I really tried my best this time around to avoid arms and hands taking up the entire shot, but it seems inevitable at this point. So accept my sincerest apologies for any and all hand and arm bonanzas. So why are we making all the holes now before milling? There is a method to the madness. One big main reason is avoiding blowout, which is when the drill breaks the last fibers before going through. Now we are widening the hole for the charting port with a larger drill bit before going in with an end mill to clean up the edges. Not to repeat myself, but this is the end mill I was referring to, and it is now cleaning up the edges. And then we go and do it all again. For the rest of the holes, except the milling bit. We only needed that for the charting port. And we are finally ready to start milling on the CNC.
Feeds and speeds, keep it tight. Treat your bits and tools just right.
Yeah, we forgot to look up feeds and speeds for oak. We did have the correct flute, so that's something. But that was a quick fix, so we were back at milling in no time. Enjoy some machining time-lapse accompanied by sweet tunes. And lastly, we went in with the lollipop cutter to make a rounded undercut to fit the profile of my Fairphone. It wasn't until post that I realized the full magnificence of my brother's MC Etcher-esque clampdown technique, a true masterpiece of workshop art. We now have a hollowed out block. So let's continue the subtractive manufacturing process by cutting out the outer dimensions. With the holding jig I made for an earlier project, I'm going to place the workpiece so that I can get a straight line close to the end outer dimension, referenced by the inside edge. Cut that on my table saw so that I can then use that newly cut edge as a reference edge towards the fence on my table saw. I know a lot of words. Now, why didn't they just CNC the outer dimensions? Valid question. And we could have. We had the tool paths already made, we discussed it, and it's because I didn't trust the wood to hold. I felt that I wanted to avoid the risk of blowout and cut it on the table saw instead, so that I could feel and compensate. Again, it turns out oak is bloody tough, and that was a baseless fear. Now I'm marking out my cut line and final depth on the side. And we're off to the bandsaw for some additional resawing. I'm using a single point fence here to keep control. Then planing to almost final depth. Cutting to final dimension. So I managed to film about half an hour of cleaning and sweeping, thinking the camera was off, and then turning off the recording when beginning the sanding. So yeah, you didn't really miss much, because there's even more sanding to be done. I'll gift you with another time lapse and tunes, because this took a while. I couldn't wait longer. I had to make a test fit. Satisfying snap.
Hi, brother in flannel here. So now that I have to do this one more time, I'm using a roughing end mill to rough out the center. So basically I've done all of the other steps that are shown before, and now instead of doing it all on the CNC, I'm roughing it out beforehand. And this means that the CNC has a lot less work to do. And it turns out that the cutting forces when I was cutting the outside here were too much for my Yankee work holding setup here. So yeah, I get to do it a third time. And while I'm roughing this out, you can notice that I have made 2 holes in the workpiece, one in each corner, that are aligned with the threaded holes on my CNC table, which means that I can actually just bolt it down using M6 screws. You're not gonna move now,
Okay, so let's just power through this. We've been here before. Didn't you use the planer for this? I know. Don't ask me why, because this took forever. Don't do this. Don't ever do this. I free-handed the round over on my hand router. And back to sanding. these fit? Yeah, that stopped being checking for imperfections a while ago. Does feel great and does not add a lot of weight to the phone though. Hi, this is me from my study or office or whatever you want to call it, doing some voiceover, video editing and script writing. But let me just start off by saying that the case is now finished. However, I have a confession to make. I wasn't done. So let me start off by saying my initial plan was to have the wood just plain, let the grain speak for itself. But the longer I handled it, the more I looked at it, the more inspiration I got and more ideas flowed. So I reached out to this amazing artist that I previously collaborated with called Botanics, and she immediately jumped on the idea. This is her showing off the design that we decided on using for this case, and I couldn't be more stoked because this looks amazing. Absolutely gorgeous. Links to all her socials in the description and her webpage before I forget it. And make sure to make sure to check out her stuff. And if you like her designs and want to support her, why not buy something? Otherwise, give her a follow if you're on the same platforms that she is. Now, I didn't film the engraving process. Let's say that I didn't do that because I wanted to spare you guys yet another time lapse, and not at all that I forgot about it because I was way too eager to get the design engraved on the case. But yeah, we'll just jump right over to the finishing step. I'm using a hard wax that's not so hard at the moment due to the temperature in my workshop being close to 28 degrees centigrade. The wax adds both protection and depth. It can also be reapplied later if the surface ever gets worn or not so nice to look at. And here we are, all done. I've learned a lot while making this. They say you go to school on the first one, although this is technically the third one. The case really came out looking absolutely amazing and satisfying to handle. I'm extremely happy with it. Hope this has inspired you to make something for yourself. And don't let the fear of failure stop you from trying something new. Remember, the destination is not what's most important. It's all the little mistakes we made along the way. Until next time.